Hey everybody, Robert here from Black Belt Gaming, continuing to read through Dragonslayer, and we're into the combat section. We covered a good bit of it in the previous video. Today I'll be continuing to talk just a little bit more about combat. We were finishing up last time saying how difficult it is to get away from your opponent. There's not really a way to, not listed in the book, a way to sort of fight defensively and maneuver around. Not really an easy way to disengage. Any of that, moving away from your opponent, is going to give them a free attack against you. So that's a bit harsh, but that's what's in the rules. And I thought there was, I'll have to look. I thought there was either a bonus or a penalty to that attack. I'm sure I'll find it here as I keep reading through with you. But today, let's continue talking about attacks and morale and damage and all of that. When you are a character, you have your attack bonus listed beside in your class section, so you'll know what kind of attack bonus you have. Fighters typically have the best. You don't really get +1 to attack until you are 3rd level, and then it counts up from there. So you can sort of take your level and subtract 2. So if you're 5th level, you're probably going to have a +3 to attack. Monsters work exactly the same way, except it's related to their hit dice. So if they have a hit dice of 5, subtract 2, and basically they'll be attacking with a +3 to hit you. So 1st level, 2nd level characters are just rolling the standard d20, unless they have an ability score or something that gives them some other attack bonus. And same with monsters. Monsters are really not going to start getting those pluses to their attacks until they're at least a hit dice 3 enemy. Morale is baked into the game, and that's great. I think some more modern versions may have left that out completely, or maybe that's tucked away in the rules somewhere off to the side. But morale is here. Clearly, for clear to see, you roll a 2d6. This is done when half the members are killed on one side, or if the leader is slain. You roll 2d6 and compare that to the monster's morale score. And let's read this carefully. If the number is less than the morale score, the monsters stand and fight. If it meets or exceeds their morale score, they flee. But this can affect the PCs too. If a PC is slain, a player character is killed, their henchmen will need to make a morale check, and this is modified by charisma and such. So, your helpers can go flying out of the dungeon if you're not careful. Critical hits and misses. Don't know how I feel about this, but this doesn't seem to be listed as an optional rule. But of course, any of these are when you take an old school game approach. You can adjust the rules as you like, but this has critical hits and misses. I'm not the biggest fan of this, but a natural 20 called a critical hit does double rolled damage. So you roll your damage twice, but then you add your strength, dexterity, or whatever only once. I remember that was a very common house rule back in the 80s, and I think our group may have even started to use that. And then there were times when we were attacking something that even just to hit it, we needed to roll a 20. And in that case, I remember our DM ruled that we could hit it with a roll of a 20, but it wasn't a critical hit. So no double damage. So that way, it wasn't either 1 through 19 miss, 20 critical hit, double damage. If you couldn't hit the thing except by rolling a 20, then it was just a regular hit. That's how we used to handle it back in the day. I was never a big fan of the critical miss, and I think that's because of what another group did that I played with. They didn't play with us regularly. Actually, I didn't go to play with them. These two guys came to our group to play in a game that we were in one day. And their group really got into the critical hits and misses, and they used to have a great time making up their own charts. And I think they had like a D100 to determine all the different terrible things that could happen if you got what they called a fumble, a roll of a 1 on the die roll. And it was, I don't know, it was so not heroic. Like you're trying to shoot a bow and arrow and you roll a 1, and then you roll on this chart and you end up having your bowstring tear your ear off. Just crazy stuff like that. And they used to get a kick out of it, but I didn't want to play with those rules. This game has critical misses. You're going to be rolling a D8. And what it can do is you might miss your next attack. You might slip and fall prone. Your weapon falls out of your hands. Your headgear gets in your way and covers your eyes. Even if you are the bravest paladin in the group, if you roll a 5, you're going to cower in fear at the little kobold in front of you for one round. Sometimes the enemy receives a free attack. You might hit your closest ally, or you might even hit yourself. So those are all the different results. Not sure I want to use those rules, to be honest, but might have to try them out and see how it works. Bind wounds. This is something that I don't think I've really seen in other games, but I kind of like what is done. What's missing in this game is the natural healing rate, and I think I did raise this question online. What is the natural healing rate? And the author, and the way he runs his games, he doesn't use that. He pretty much has the philosophy that you go into the dungeon and then you get out of the dungeon. You don't camp in the dungeon. And I guess you don't even camp on the way there or the way home. You're either in the dungeon or back in town. And so my advice would be, if you wanted to have a natural healing rate, just go back to your old basic BX rules, and I think it's 1d3 per day of rest. AD&D was a little bit more strict. It was only 1 hit point per day. Pretty tough. And if you moved around or did anything at all, was it even walking? I know if you got in anything strenuous, you won't even get that 1 hit point back. So it was pretty tough. This game has bind wounds. In the old school games I played in, bind wounds would just simply stop you from bleeding out if you were in the negatives. But in this game, binding wounds is quite useful. You can just be down a few hit points, and at the conclusion of the battle, you can choose to take a turn, about 10 minutes of game time, and bind your wounds. And right there on the spot, with no magic, you can heal 1 to 3 hit points. And this is per battle, so it's not once per day. So even if a PC is unconscious, you might be able to help them. And let's talk about that. We're going into the damage and death. Normally in the old basic rules, as soon as you hit 0, you were dead. AD&D, I think, added the up to -10 rule. So once you went past -10, you hit -10 or more and you were dead. This is evidently labeled as an optional rule, I think. Is that right? Let me check here. Death and dying. Yeah, optional rule that may be used at the discretion of the maze controller. If you get dropped exactly to 0 hit points, you're unconscious for 1d6 rounds, and then you'll revive to 1 hit point. However, monsters may get a free attack against you, a coup de grace. And I think that may be explained a little bit more here in a moment. -1 to -9. If you're dropped into the -1 to -9 range, you have to save versus death or die. A save results in just unconsciousness for 1d6, and you'll wake up with 1 hit point. A failure, your character is gone. Only 1 save is allowed, so if you fail it, you're dead. At -10 or below, you're dead. There's no save allowed. So we're flipping over now into the miniature light rules. It assumes you're moving in little squares of 5 feet per grid. And just looking down here, we see things like the marching order and how you want to organize your party. If you're able to flank on opposite sides, if you see this on the screen, you're able to get +2 to hit. Reach weapons, you can reach around or over. But here is the thing about halberds that I'm not sure I'm going to enforce in my games. Halberds cannot be used against an adjacent target. And I'm like, because they absolutely can be. But I think the author really wanted to favor spears. So with the way that you cannot move away from an enemy, it's so strange that you have such a great melee weapon, and as soon as the lizard man takes a step up and gets adjacent to you, your weapon is completely useless. And that just doesn't seem right. So in my opinion, the reason that the spear is better is because of its versatility. You can throw it. You can't throw the halberd. You can wield the spear with a shield. You can't do that with the halberd. It's a two-handed weapon. And then you can wield both of them two-handed. And that's where they're, I guess, the same, offering the benefits of reach. So I don't think I will go with that little blurb there, that they can't be used against an adjacent target. Really questioning why that was included in the book. I've never seen that in other editions, but I really think that the author favors spears over halberds, and maybe that's why it's there. Not sure. There is a push past rule. Player characters can move through spaces occupied by other player characters or allies, as long as they are not adjacent to an enemy. So, if they're engaged in combat and you're wanting to try to move around them, I don't think that works. I think you have to have space to move around and get to the other side. So I don't think you can push past, as it's called. Charge. To charge in this game, you need to be at least 20 feet away. And you can rush up and attack, and it scores double rolled damage. What can you do on your turn? Gosh, did I not mention this before? You're allowed some different actions. And let's see. You can move and attack and then move. Cast and move, and that's interesting. I think in some other versions of the game, if you're casting a spell, you can't move. But in this game, you can. So move and cast, or cast and move. Or you can double run and double your movement rate. But there's nothing listed here for double attack. You can't do that. So drawing a weapon is a free action. Of course, dropping a weapon would be as well. And pulling something out of your backpack, maybe drinking a potion and such, all of those are considered a full round action. But the maze controller will give you the final decision on all of this. Disengaging from opponents draws immediate free attacks. I don't see an attack bonus or penalty listed there. I guess it's just a standard free attack. The coup de grace, if you are dropped and unconscious, but maybe you're not dead yet. And I didn't see a bleeding out rule. Back in the day, we used to play that you lost 1 hit point per round when you were in the negatives until somebody could get to you and bind your wounds. But I don't see that in this game. The coup de grace, if it hits you, it's an automatic hit, and you have to save versus death, plus the damage inflicted or die. So I guess if the damage is going to take you to -10 or more, then it's going to be an automatic death. High ground. If you're up on higher ground than your opponent, you get +1 to hit and +1 damage. So we already talked about the marching order and missile attacks from the second rank if you have shorter races in front, but reach weapons can still attack from the second rank past the front, which is pretty neat. The point blank shot gets you +1 to hit, +1 damage. It needs to be at least 5 feet away, 5 feet away or 10 feet away, and that can still work. Friendly fire, here we go. If you're trying to shoot into an area and your friends are engaged in combat there, a low attack, a roll of a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4 on the D20 will indicate that you've accidentally hit a party member. So I think that's pretty good for the combat section, and on the following pages there are some combat example is listed. So thanks for listening, everybody. I'll catch you later.